The story begins with a woman lying on the floor. Suddenly, she starts getting dragged by an unseen person, gasping in pain. Switching to a much less unsettling scene, a group of 4 friends are introduced. The one named Jim talks to the camera, saying tonight they are in one of the most haunted locations in all of England. We see brief moments of the group, scared out of their wits somewhere inside. Jim says they got their spirit box and their EMF meter. From this, we learn they are a team of paranormal investigators. Then the one named Ozzy says that a man got himself in a lot of debt in the 1960s. Instead of paying it back, he offered his wife and his 2 before he joined them. The gang seems quite petrified of the place they're in. Suddenly, we realize this is all a video being watched by Ozzy before he gets interrupted by a video call. The call is from his friend Gabe, who mentions their next project at an asylum. He says he has to pay $10,000 rather than the $5,000 he discussed with Ozzy. There is nothing he could do about it. After they talk for a short time, Ozzy ends the call on an agreement for them to partake in their big project. His girlfriend Nova enters the scene, telling him $10,000 is a lot of money. But Ozzy knows what money is, replying it was a lot maybe 2 years ago, and he assures her they will make more than that with their upcoming shooting. Getting on top of her, he says he loves her and wants her to say it back to him, so she does. The next day, Ozzy gets a visit from Jim. As they relax in Ozzy's comfortable room, Jim says he thinks they went too far in their last video. He wants Ozzy to remember the rules they built their channel on. Things like knocks or bangs were never supposed to be taken too far, or else the crew might be accused of being fake. Ozzy thinks his friend is overreacting, for he wants their channel to evolve. Jim wants it to evolve too, but in the other direction. He wants the fake stuff to stop and be replaced by something real. Their friend, Danny, agrees with him, he adds. This prompts Ozzy to lean closer to Jim, telling him they would have no content if they did that. Of all the times the gang has done this, they had at most 4 truly scary events. Thus, he repeats they have to spice things up, or they will have no viewers. Ozzy thinks this is the future of entertainment, and ultimately, people just want to be entertained. Once he says he finalized the deal with Gabe on the asylum, Jim's rigidly opposing mindset starts to melt. Ozzy excites him by saying they could be the last people to explore one of the most haunted locations on the planet. At a different time, Ozzy gets another visitor, his friend Rory. He goes upstairs to greet the aforementioned Danny, who tells him he's not scared of where they're going. It would be great for him to see something supernatural. That way they will know for sure if there is an afterlife. Rory says if they won't find any activity in the asylum, they won't find it anywhere else. Later, we see the whole gang entering Ozzy's house. A party ensues to celebrate the direction they are all going in. It eerily feels like the calm before the storm. The team member, Claire, announces that tonight they drink, and tomorrow they will fight the forces of darkness. Come tomorrow, we see their vehicle zooming along a road. Soon, they near a huge building. It is the asylum the crew has arrived to experience. Looking at it, Claire calls it beautiful. She warns her friends not to engage in solo exploration since there is no cell service. Their radios will be their sole means of communication. Ozzy tells Danny to get a few drone shots of the building before it gets dark. Afterward, all 8 of them are inside and start filming. Ozzy pumps up the gang by saying they will make history. As Jim is talking, they all hear the sound of something fall. It prompts them to explore the source of the commotion. Claire finds a plank, claiming it was the thing that fell over. When she reports it to the team, a member named Emma asks her how it fell. Of course, Claire does not know. Ozzy is excited to report to their viewers that they have been there for a mere 5 minutes and crazy things are already happening. Jim adds, this is a seriously scary location. If anything happens to them, no one is around for miles. He tries to inject the viewers with excitement by acknowledging that help is a long distance away from them. Finishing this segment, Ozzy says the asylum will be bulldozed in 1 week. Later, Claire introduces her friends to a certain device that now lies on a table. It filters out all radio noise, making the messages more audible. So they turn it on, and Nova asks if any spirits want to talk to them. Several undecipherable responses emanate from the device. Claire asks what the speaker's name is, which causes a heavy, frightening voice to tell them to get out. Gabe asks why it wants them to do this. Another unintelligible response comes to the group. They are all thrilled to be using the special device, but Emma is very creeped out and wants it turned off. After that happens, Gabe whispers to Claire if what they heard was real. She answers that she did not set up a hoax. Then Gabe suggests that due to the huge size of the building, they should split into smaller teams. Danny is chosen to stay in the current room, and Claire reminds the gang to use their radios if they have problems. She says the red button on the side will sound an alarm if pressed for 2 seconds. Thus, they split up to go their separate ways. All alone, Danny hears a sound that scares him. He gets up and calls out in the darkness. No one answers him, and he sits back down, causing one of the suitcases to fall. This instantly scares him to the point of screaming. As Jim is filming with Ozzy, the former says this place is very creepy. He asks his friend if nothing scares him, receiving the answer that the Speedy House spiders do. Ozzy tells Jim all he has to worry about is animals and crazy people. Soon the duo hears a noise and Jim catches sight of a door. It starts to open by itself, prompting the brave Ozzy to check what is on the other side of it. When they enter the room, he says it must have been the wind that shut the door. Yet Jim points out that the windows are shut and boarded outside, meaning there is no wind coming through there. When Ozzy finds certain papers on the floor, the duo hears another noise. Ozzy laughs instead of being scared. To Jim, it sounded like the ceiling is falling. Ozzy radios Nova, asking if she could hear him. Shifting to her with Rory, they also heard the noise. Rory says the problem with splitting up is that none of them will know if the noise was made by one of them or something else in the building. Nova uses her radio to ask the team if any of them heard the noise. Ozzy answers they are okay, but have bad reception. Gabe talks into the camera, saying that since the asylum closed, there have been many reports of spirits refusing to leave the place. Emma chimes in, adding that one of those spirits is a former patient named Pete, whose life was taken by the orderlies in a satanic ritual. His spirit has become a violent poltergeist, she adds. Gabe claims the noise they heard could have come from Pete. He acts out the spirit's possible fury, saying he might have gotten angry with them for invading his space. In a short time, a shadow quickly moves past the trio, scaring them dreadfully. Cautiously, they walk further to investigate. A sizable brick seems to fall ahead, terrifying them enough to run back to their original spot. Claire is the brave one who wants to return to check what it was. The other two follow her, and she tells them the brick did not fall from above. This makes Gabe ask if she is implying that someone threw it. Emma speculates it might be. Meanwhile, Ozzy and Jim enter a new area. Ozzy says he can't find anything, yet it's where the noise was coming from. At this point, he wonders that perhaps Jim was correct about doing their investigations without the fake effects. At that moment, they hear another eerie sound. Suddenly, the door shuts on the duo, causing them to frantically try to open it. This tense moment is a perfect time to shift to Danny. He radios the others to ask if they are okay because he's hearing strange things. A small rock falls his way, and he thinks his friends threw it. At the other end, Nova and Rory enter a room with a huge pentagram on the floor. It causes her to talk to their viewers, informing them of what they found. Rory is curious to know if the pentagram was done when the asylum was open or after it closed. Nova does not know. What she does know is that the symbol was burned into the wood. She also knows the building was shut down due to the satanic rituals performed by the staff. In Rory's observation, it looks like the ritual spot was recently used. Nova takes out a device and asks if any spirits wish to communicate. She asks if they could use the energy from the battery to show their presence. When the lights flash on her device, she gets thrilled. Now she asks if the spirit was a patient there who was mistreated by the staff. Again, her device flashes. A sudden noise interrupts their excitement. The trouble soon escalates into a rock slamming into Rory's face, knocking him back. He struggles in pain and Nova points out he's bleeding. Looking at it, he says there is an odd symbol on the rock. Nova says she's seen the symbol elsewhere. It's a satanic cross, she adds. Now the lady thinks they should get out of there, so they go for the door, only to have it close on them. Back to Danny. He hears running behind him. He discovers a stray dog that approaches him. Afterward, we see Emma ask her friends if it is a good idea for them to chase whatever they are chasing. Gabe responds that this is who they are. With concern, she asks what if it's not a ghost. At that moment, they hear a distant noise and Claire thinks it sounded like footsteps. It prompts Gabe to have them set up their laser grid. He starts speaking to their viewers, telling them they are attempting to detect movement with the grid. Returning to Jim and Ozzy, they manage to get the door open. Jim thinks one of their friends might be messing with, but Ozzy tells him everyone is taking this seriously. Soon they hear a frightening ghostly sound, causing Jim to throw his hands up to say he's done with this place. Ozzy insists they keep moving, until a bang gets him to jump back. He agrees with his friend, and they start going back. Meanwhile, Rory and Nova are still trapped. Fear pushes them away from their locked door when they hear another eerie sound. Rory calls out if anyone is out there, but no one answers him. Nova stands near the door, but another noise brings her to the floor. Back to the trio, Gabe sees the lights flicker on the grid. He says he's never seen a grid move like this. He stands up in fear and acquires refuge by hugging Emma. Despite being scared, he urges Claire to keep filming, for this is the best footage they ever shot. Subsequently, a door opens where the laser grid is, and the trio gets injected with fear, so they run. As they do, Gabe runs into a trap that brutally gets him impaled. Of course, this is more horror than any of them were prepared to handle. While this unfolds, the dog jumps on Danny, pushing him back. Everyone is faced with a struggle at this point. Shifting to Ozzy and Jim, they are occupying a room with many planks of wood. It doesn't take long for a person wearing a gas mask to emerge from the planks. He starts to attack Jim with a pipe and Ozzy jumps on the stranger. In fear and anger, he slams the stranger with the pipe repeatedly. Once he's done, Jim wonders why the person has no face. Now Ozzy is certain they need to leave. Afterward, Claire and Emma fret over their situation. Although they encounter the trap that took Gabe's life, they decide to risk doing it again. As they run, we see someone grab Claire. Emma turns around to see her missing. She is in another room with her kidnapper, yelling at him to tell her why he's doing this. Two more strangers walk closer to her without saying a word, and she tries to escape. One of them stabs her several times. Emma hears Claire behind the locked doors. She assures her friend she will get help and runs away. Claire gets dragged away, which should remind us of the opening scene. The strangers leave her on the floor and walk away. Switching to Danny, we see that he destroyed the dog with a knife. A stranger appears before him, scaring him into abandoning his post. In a few seconds, Emma arrives in the empty room. Thankfully, Ozzy joins her along with Jim. They are people she is very happy to see. She tells them Gabe is deceased, but she does not know about Claire. Jim grabs her to ask if she is sure Gabe is gone, and she is. Ozzy becomes determined to find Nova. He says the radios don't seem to work there, meaning they need to stay together. Jim wants Emma to show them where Claire is located. The frightened lady can barely speak, asking what is happening to them. Jim guesses this horror is being performed by some insane homeless people. Emma says they need to find weapons, and Ozzy agrees. Shortly after, we observe Danny running in fear. He sets up a laser grid and a ghost box in a room, which emanates strange sounds. One of the strangers enters the room, slamming down the laser grid. As he walks toward the ghost box, Danny uses this time to flee. When he slams the box, the stranger notices Danny has escaped. Following this, Rory tells Nova that maybe they are being messed with by their group. However, this feels very different to Nova. It's not something their friends would do. Returning to the trio, Emma brings her friends to the door that leads into the room Claire was taken into. Ozzy opens it with a simple turn of the handle. Upon entering the room, they observe Claire lying on a recently made pentagram. Emma loses her mind seeing it, and Jim falls to the floor in disbelief. He screams, wanting to know what is going on. Ozzy apologizes to Emma, telling her they have to keep moving. Jim has to collect her because she cannot walk on her own. After they leave the room, we focus on the other two. Nova uses her radio to ask if Ozzy can hear her. Alas, no one answers. She thinks she read somewhere that asylums block signals. Suddenly, without warning, the vicious strangers surprise them by entering the room. Nova gets knocked out whilst Rory gets dragged out of the room. They all leave her lying in the room for an unknown reason. At the other end, Danny continues to flee. Unfortunately for him, he reaches a wall and his chaser draws near with a knife. He stabs Danny with it, cutting the scene. Waking up, Nova tries to radio Ozzy again, saying she needs him. Shifting to his group, they keep moving through the chilling asylum. Emma is smart to point out there have to be more traps around. All the doors in the hallway happen to be locked. Soon an ounce of good luck falls on them. Ozzy hears Nova over the radio, but he's not allowed to keep talking to her. He reasons she must be near, which is why they can hear her. The next scene has Rory, sitting restrained on another pentagram. One of the strangers places the injured Danny in front of him. Rory asks his friend what is on the floor, and Danny is too scared to tell him. Seeing the pentagram, he worries. Afterward, Nova hears Ozzy over the radio. She says she's on the 3rd floor in a locked room. She presses the alarm button on her radio, allowing Ozzy to hear it. When they find her locked door, they start banging on it. As they do, Nova gets a visit from one of the strangers and becomes terrified. He directs himself towards her with a knife. Fortunately, he does not cut her. He just starts to drag Nova away. Ozzy and Jim manage to break through the locked door to witness this, but a stranger stays to fight the trio, while the other dragging Nova escapes. Ozzy and Jim work together, eliminating the maniac. Back to the restrained Danny and Rory. They get a visit from two strangers. Rory yells for them to leave. Unfortunately for him, yelling does not help his situation. One of the strangers delivers lethal stabs to him, and his friend is forced to watch this madness. Then the stranger collects Rory's blood in a glass before giving it to the other one, who uncannily drinks it. Danny spits on the figure standing near him. All the man responds with is the word Moloch. He follows this by carving Danny's face with a knife. Switching to the trio, they venture into a lower area. Ozzy says it's below the room Nova was dragged into. After exploring there for some time, they find beds and bottles, indicating that someone resides here. Ozzy even finds a file with a sketch of a gas mask on it. There are other similar files he looks through. Showing them to his friends, he and Jim end up believing that the file that has the sketch belongs to the attacker who wore the gas mask. Ozzy reasons that all the crazy attackers are ex-patients of the asylum. Emma wonders why they would choose to live there, given this place is where they were mistreated. Jim provides the most likely answer. They had nowhere else to go. Shortly after, one of the ex-patients approaches them. He slams Emma against the wall, which knocks her out. Then he moves on to Jim, who he quickly gets down on the floor. Ozzy attempts to rescue his friend by slamming the maniac with a metal stick several times, but it doesn't seriously injure him. Thus, he tries using a knife, yet surprisingly, it doesn't work too well either. This is a very tough squatter. Soon enough though, the knife wounds aggregate, and the man falls. Jim gasps for air, having been choked by the crazed patient. They direct themselves towards Emma, learning she is unconscious. Ozzy says they need to find Nova. However, Jim objects to leaving Emma on her own in this state. Once Ozzy says they will return for her, Jim yells at him in objection. Continuing to oppose him, Ozzy says there are 3 of their friends missing in the asylum, and they don't even know Emma. Jim cannot believe Ozzy said those words. In a short time, Ozzy tells Jim to stay there while he ventures to find the others. He comes to his senses about having been wrong to leave Emma unprotected. Before Ozzy leaves, Jim tells him not to do anything stupid. Following this, we see Ozzy nearly squeezing through a narrow area. Emma eventually wakes up and starts worrying, so Jim tries to calm her. In the meantime, Ozzy finds Danny lying lifelessly. He has a hard time processing where their situation has taken them. As Jim is talking to Emma, he gets stabbed from behind. Emma is lucky to escape. Ozzy enters a room where he finally locates his restrained girlfriend. Trying to free her, he gets a visit from an ex-patient. Thankfully, Ozzy handles him quickly with a stick before freeing Nova. Switching to Emma, she is forced to pass through a very narrow area that has many razor blades attached to both sides. It's either this or facing the maniac with the axe. Choosing the first option, the poor lady cuts on the razors a few times as she carefully moves through the space. The maniac watches her struggle. When she exits to the other side, she does not have a victory. Instead, she falls with some razors stuck inside her before getting dragged away. Now, Ozzy and Nova seem to be the sole survivors. Soon she asks her boyfriend where the others are. Ozzy tells her a white lie, saying they will meet them outside. He had to say that to avoid the possibility of her experiencing a mental breakdown. Afterward, the maniac with the axe appears, and Ozzy is forced to fight with a stick again. This time, his luck runs dry, for he gets struck in the neck. Still alive, Ozzy fights the man on the floor, until Nova helps by stabbing the maniac in the back. Ozzy yells for her to go to the tunnel without him, so she does. The ex-patient starts to follow her, but Ozzy strikes his head with the axe. Severely wounded, Ozzy stands up, yelling out to his girlfriend. He heads through the tunnel she went through, while struggling not to fall. Finally getting to Nova, he sees her crying over a lifeless Jim. Ozzy barely has the energy to tell her where she should go. She does not want to leave without him, but he forcefully tells her to do it. Therefore, she listens to him. Nova starts to climb a ladder leading out of there. Ozzy says farewell to Jim, telling him that he will return for his friend. Then he struggles to follow Nova. Ozzy gets to the ladder, but he does not have the energy to climb. Nova is outside, urging him to do it. Thus he finds his inner strength, climbing up gradually. Nova helps him ascend, and he gets out. However, the poor guy has to lie down in pain and exhaustion. Getting asked if anyone else is alive, he shakes his head. The truth comes out in the end. Ozzy tells her he's sorry, yet she says he's a hero for saving her, after he says he failed at saving the others. Nova replies he isn't responsible for it. As they start walking away from the asylum that nearly destroyed them, we see the last maniac climbing out too. The knife Nova stabbed into his back is still there. He follows the duo with his axe, but we do not get to see how the situation will unfold. Our view shifts to the darkness of the night, and we can only speculate what fate the survivors will be met with.